everyone. It is so good to be with you again and to hear all of your joys and sorrows and all of the excitement that's happening in Dawn Heights. I wanted to start my service or my topic with a quote from Parker Palmer. This is really what led me to my contemplations into the writing of this service. So I'm going to start with a quote. It's from the book that's called From a Hidden Wholeness, written by Parker Palmer. There was a time when farmers on the Great Plains, at the first sign of a blizzard, would run a rope from the back door of their house out to the barn. They all knew stories of people who had wandered off and been frozen to death, having lost sight of home in a whiteout while still in their own backyards. Today we live in a blizzard of another sort. It swirls around us as economic injustice, ecological ruin, physical and spiritual violence, and their inevitable outcome, war. It swirls within us fear and frenzy, greed and deceit, and indifference to the suffering of others. We all know stories of people who have wandered off into this madness and been separated from their own souls, losing their moral bearing and even their mortal lives. The lost ones come from every walk of life: clergy and corporate executives, politicians and people on the streets, celebrities and school children. Some of us fear that we or those we love will become lost in the storm. Some of us are lost at this moment and are trying to find our way home. Some are lost without knowing it. And some are using the blizzard as a cover while cynically exploiting its chaos for private gain. My own experience of the blizzard, which includes getting lost in it more times than I would like to admit, tells me that the soul's order can never be destroyed. It may be obscured by the whiteout. We may forget or deny that its guidance is close at hand, and yet we are still in the soul's backyard, with chance after chance to regain our bearings. And so, with those words to settle us into our space and time today, I offer you these thoughts of my own. There's been quite the blizzard around the world these days. The dissolution of all COVID protocols after 2 years of on again, off again lockdowns and announcements of the Emergencies Act in Canada, the war happening in Ukraine, along with all of the Russian sanctions, the escalating prices of housing. In times like these, we look for our lifelines to help us find our way, to help us traverse the difficult journeys that are present in our lives today. In the storms that life can throw at us, in the storms of life that we seek to reconnect, to reach out and grab hold of something steady. One of the lifelines that I cling to is my faith, Unitarian Universalism. Recently, I facilitated a workshop called Starting Point, a program used for new people in our community to discover what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. And one of the sessions is called The 3 Paths to Unitarian Universalism. And as I shared the details of these 3 paths and the group talked about how they might want to walk these paths, it became clear to me that this session might be appropriate for all Unitarian Universalists, no matter how new or long-term their relationship with our faith has been. We started with this concept of how Unitarian Universalism is very different from other faiths in the way that we define religion. While many faiths, many religious traditions would identify religion as a belief in God or the afterlife, Unitarian Universalists look at the Latin root of the word religion to define it. The Latin roots of the word would be re and ligio. Re meaning to again or back, and ligio meaning ligament or link. So religion means tying back together or linking back together. And this is where we find our understanding of religion, in a reconnecting to that which brings human wholeness. Instead of focusing on beliefs, we focus on the things that reconnect us to our full humanity. So perhaps the lifelines that can bring us back during the blizzarding storms of our world, the paths that reconnect us when the storms of life blow us away from our truths. The starting point curriculum states, and I believe, that there are three paths within Unitarian Universalism. Perhaps we could call them the three lifelines that help us reconnect, that help us lead back to our true selves, to reconnect to our wholeness. These three paths are the path of listening to our deepest self, the path of opening up to life's gifts, and the path of serving needs that are greater than our own. In the storm of life, as we travel the road through blizzards, it is these three lifelines that attempt to reconnect us to the wholeness of being human. A recognition of a disconnection from our deepest self, a disconnection from the giftedness of life, and a disconnection from the needs that are greater than our own. Not only is Unitarian Universalism offering three paths towards reconnecting to our wholeness of human being, but as it is shown here, there are three practices by which to engage in the spiritual work of reconnecting: listening, opening, and serving. Ours is a faith of relationships and practices. Relationships with the self, with life, and with the needs of others, and practices of deepening, opening, and serving. But what does this mean? I believe that this is where our idea of a compass comes into play. We are on a journey that we call life, and we have tried to determine how we want to move through life, which has brought us to Unitarian Universalism. Or perhaps we have had the opportunity to be brought into this path from the beginning of our lives. And now that we are here, we are given insights and suggestions, tools and ideas about how to reconnect with our wholeness, how to reconnect with the ideas of being human, how to reconnect to life, and to that which is greater than ourselves. But unlike many of the other world religions, we have not been given a map. We've not been told what to do and what to not do, how to pray and how to practice, how to think and how to plan for the future. We have been given a compass to use on this journey. The compass is Unitarian Universalism, and we are creating a map that helps us reconnect to our deepest selves, reconnect to the gifts of life, and to that which is greater than ourselves. The compass is Unitarian Universalism. The map is our practices of deep listening, opening up, and serving. And the journey is a life of integrity, a life of awe and wonder, a life of service to the world, and a life that is whole and holy. My own journey has fit this model in many, many ways, but has also fallen short in a few dimensions. My childhood, growing up being raised in Unitarian and Unitarian Universalist communities, has followed a very common path. Religious education was storytelling, didactic, and arts and crafts. There was lots of learning about other religions, about how the natural world worked, growing potatoes in styrofoam cups and watching honeybees in a hive. I attended pretty regularly while I was a young child, but when my family moved to a larger city and felt lost in a larger church, we stopped attending for a while. And this is how my story went from about the age of 11 until 22. I would come to church when it felt right. Youth group was really exciting for me, but I wasn't able to stay connected. As first jobs were introduced, friendships imploded, or my family moved out of the city and into the suburbs. It wasn't until I was ready to get married and needed to figure out the details of a ceremony that I jumped back into my faith with full force. As a child, a youth, and perhaps even some of my young adult years, the pathway of my faith was not very visible. I was often invited into reconnecting with myself and my sense of life's gifts, but I did not know how to do this without the prescription of Sunday mornings. My parents attempted to support my developing sense of self and understanding of the world, and and I was confident and loved the fact that I was Unitarian Universalist. I believe that it took a much longer time for me to fully understand what it means to be walking the path of Unitarian Universalism, to be using it as my compass. As I continue to grow in my faith and I continue to participate in religious education, I began to understand more deeply what this faith asked of me and how I might live more fully into myself. One of the first activities that I did after re-engaging with my church was to take a class called Building Your Own Theology. It was a 10-week course that built up to the creating of your own credo statement, or a statement of religious belief. We followed several activities that allowed us to develop understandings of human nature, ultimate reality, or history and ethics. Although I don't remember what my credo statement was, and I'm fairly certain it has changed drastically in the last 12 years, I remember this being a really significant turning point on my path. It was at this point that I started to pay attention to the relationships that I had with that which was greater than me. Previously, the only thing I would say about being a Unitarian was that I was not Christian, that I did not believe in God, and that I thought what was important was people. Taking this class allowed me to dig deeper into what my understanding of what was the divine. It allowed me to discover what it was that I believed was important instead of talking about what I did not believe in. I also started participating in and later facilitating a chalice circle groups that gathered once a month with conversations based on common themes, quotes, conversation questions, and time to be together to wrestle with the topic presented to us. Another introduction to a path that I am journeying along. The path of opening up to others, to the gifts of their knowledge, their words, their excitement, joy, laughter, frustration, and heartache. As I moved along this journey of how I was living my life as a Unitarian Universalist, seeking to find a way to live with integrity and find my wholeness, I started to realize that I was ignoring a very important aspect of my journey. I was not listening to my deepest self. I believe it took a long time to be able to listen to myself because I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I was constantly being told that what I believed and what I thought were wrong, and that I didn't understand how the world worked. I was constantly being informed that my feelings were invalid, and that if I wanted to get through this life, I would need to create a harder exterior. I'm not exactly certain what it was about my life that encouraged me to leave this relationship, but I do know that a big part of it was that I had started coming back to church and that I was regularly listening to sermons and had discussions in small groups that were in direct opposition from the messages that I was receiving in my marriage. I was able to listen to these deepest depths of myself because other people were listening and seeking her out. I was able to figure out what was right for me. I was able to discover what needed to change in my life because other people were willing to listen to me speak truths out loud without shutting me down, without commenting, and without judgment. Being able to speak into the words that which I struggled to realize in my heart was true. This is also one of the reasons that I chose to become a minister. Being able to sit with someone, ask questions that allow them to speak their truths, or release the emotions that they have pent up within them was a gift that I wanted to give back to the universe, a service that I am offering. Unitarian Universalism is a religion that offers us three paths of reconnection: reconnection to ourselves, reconnection to the gifts of life, and reconnection to the needs that are greater than our own. An opportunity to reconnect as the blizzard of our world continues to blow around us. The storm of life that overtakes our ability to see what matters the most. And at times, the storm even comes from within our own faith, much like the eighth principle conversation and special vote that happened this past summer and fall. This is but one example of the many ways in which Unitarian Universalists have been adding to the blizzard instead of helping strengthen each other's lifelines. Unitarian Universalism is a challenging religion, a challenging community to be part of. We are a community that offers you a compass, but requires of you to identify your true north and to find your own map. Sometimes it may seem as though you are being asked to make something from nothing, create a life of integrity, a life where you hold the worth and dignity of all human beings up, a life where you recognize the interconnected web of which you are a part. And yet, all you are given is a compass to identify what this means. But it is in our stories, in our sharing, in our hearing each other and opening up to the gifts of each other. It is in recognizing that we are journeying with each other and part of something that is more than we will ever be, that we get the material to build our own maps. We figure out how and why we are on this journey, and that we get to figure out our story. Thank you so much for listening.